Hello again, people. People of all kinds. Uh, the intros will probably never get better. I'm recording this 5:28 a.m., February 8th, 2024, and I have at least some light amount of scripting I've added. Not much, just an outline. Realistically, this series probably will never get like a full-on proper script. The whole point of it is meant to just kind of be my uncut thoughts and unclouded by things like how I get when I talk directly to people. Um, the way that I tend to get is I will try and say, or even sometimes not say things to try and please people, to try and make them happy or feel uh, appreciated, connected, so on. These videos really, realistically, aren't even entirely for you, the viewer, listener. They're for me. Um, if you get something out of this, then that just makes it all the better. Multi-purpose. With that said, something to kind of expect is this kind of vibe. I figured I'd kind of cover this a little bit before we kind of dive in and before we've gotten in too deep, so to speak. Um, kind of expect this sort of rambling style, slightly unhinged at times, depending on my emotions. Um, I'm overall going to kind of cover a lot of things that, like, maybe if I record one of these, I might have had like a breakthrough or an epiphany, or maybe I just need to kind of talk to myself for a bit, or kind of talk to the aether, uh, stare into the void and see if it stares back, see if I blink, play chicken with the void. Um, and so don't try and expect too much. Maybe if this actually becomes, I don't know, mildly interesting to people, other than some very few, I might do something proper with this. Highly doubtful though. So let's start a little bit with one of the biggest things I've been feeling lately, and what I'm sure, or what I'm hoping I can kind of get across of to some people is the feeling of isolation. What that means. Isolation to me has been maybe not necessarily been like, I don't know, being alone in the sense of I have people who care about me and I have people who are trying to do their very best to try and make me happy or anything like that. But what it really is this feeling of lack of interests that align with a lot of other people that I know or those people that I care about. I tend to sway over towards very specific games that maybe don't, um, that a lot of my other friends don't like for various reasons. Recently, I picked up the new Tekken 8, and that's been very fun actually. Despite the fact that it is Tekken, overly complex and so on, with literally hundreds of moves a character. Um, I've actually been getting to enjoy it more because of how good like the tutorial, quote unquote, is the arcade quest, and how good it is at kind of giving you piecemeal um, sort of instructions, letting you toy around with those things one at a time, and not just kind of diving you head first. Um, but also a lot of the accessibility tools, things like how they allow you to dive into the replays and, you know, literally test things that you messed up that lost you the matches or things like that, and how it'll actually kind of point out some of them to you. It's really nice, actually. Some other games, I want to play more of Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, but I kind of doubt that I'll really actually be able to much, at least not alone, just because a lot of my friends are all kind of swept up in different things. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's more of along the lines of just like the only reason it bugs me is just because I'm kind of used to it. I've always kind of had more niche style games compared to a lot of like my other friends. One circle of friends tends to play a lot of like factory style games, Factorio, Satisfactory, probably Stellaris, and other strategy style games. Um, Another circle plays a lot of like Halo and those kinds of old like fucking boomer shooters as they're called, like Doom and such. Um, and what usually ends up happening is I don't really get to play a lot of the games that I actually really want to play. Things like I actually wanted to really get into the second Hot Wheels racing game, but literally none of my friends picked it up or played it or anything like that. Um, I've been enjoying Power World. That's probably been one of the only exceptions, but then again, I'm pretty sure everyone and their mother has probably heard of Power World at this point. Um, so the isolation feeling is more along the lines of kind of that feeling of even though you're surrounded by people that you care about, there's just this overarching feeling of not really fully belonging. Um, and that's kind of where it brings me to the next step is what I'm trying to do for the future. Because my personal belief is that it's one thing to kind of complain or vent to get these things off your chest, but none of that is actually going to matter unless you actually start to try and make moves towards some kind of fixing or something of it. And in my case, I am actually going to try and go through with the move with my friend. They are going to. I'm thinking sometime in May at very least. Well, or most probably May. I'm going to do a big move, and realistically, there's a good chance that I might just not settle for a good while. I might literally just live on the road with that person in a truck because to me, that actually sounds enjoyable. I'm finding out I'm actually more of like an extrovert than an introvert. Um, so the prospect of actually seeing more of the world than just where my apartment is and where I've been basically born and such sounds absolutely heavenly to me. Um, a lot of people might be kind of scared by that notion and whatnot, but I actually am enthralled by it. Um, but eventually, I'll probably at least settle somewhere. It's just a matter of I don't know where because uh, I don't really have a lot. I don't have money of my own. The only reason why this would kind of work would essentially just be like almost like a sugar daddy, sugar mommy situation where uh, I give them emotional support or something like that, and they basically pay my bills. um, but the fact that I'm at a point where that is the closest thing I've ever felt to actual, like, I guess, what, potential or, safety kind of thing. I guess that kind of says a lot, you know, and that kind of brings us to the next point of safety and how a lot of us tend to kind of take that statement for granted. Um, whenever we think safety, sure, we think making sure we don't get shot, and some people do genuinely have to worry about that. Um, I am one of those fortunate who don't have to worry about that too much, even if I live on a place that is colloquially commonly known as felony flats where I live. Um, but other than that, uh, it's actually relatively peaceful. And I know a lot of people who would really like the kind of safety and consistency that my current place provides me. But for me, Safety also is actually being able to kind of trust people, not just like being able to disclose this kind of information or to kind of reach out or anything like that. It also can be something of like actually, believing that people can or will do things beyond just like saying they will. Um, and I mean, I'm human. We're all making those mistakes. I make those mistakes. Friends of mine make those mistakes. People I probably don't know make those mistakes. And I think it's kind of important to try and remember things like that. Um, and safety and trust kind of go hand in hand. Um, and trust is something that, despite what a lot of people I know might think, I don't actually feel a lot of trust just because I have to, or rather, I have put on my end a lot of work to try and make a lot of people feel comfortable and welcome. And there's not a lot of people who have kind of gone actually uh, above and beyond to try and actually reciprocate that feeling all too much. Some people have expressed the interest to do so, or um, expressed some kind of desire to, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is I don't know necessarily. I cannot physically answer you of like what it would take to actually do that beyond just like I literally can't even answer. Like it's a complicated question, but I guess the concept of if I had different flaws and maybe some things that were more in common, would you notice or care if I was that person instead? Is I guess a big d- factor of like how you would define that, I guess. Which then kind of leads me into our next sort of thing of replacement and how I guess to some degree you can kind of feel like an imposter even in a group of your closest friends, your trusted family, so to speak, whether real family or, well, I don't like saying real family, your blood family or your online family, your non-blood family, people that you know would call your family. uh, and that's kind of something I've also been struggling with, is that feeling of how I feel like I could honestly be replaced, and I sometimes feel like I should, to some degree. And what I don't want is people trying to confront me about it or anything like that. I'm not feeling what self-harm or anything like that. It's more of just like when you spend years of your life just kind of sitting around other people, and you have like a genuine curiosity to try and learn why other people like the games they do or like the shows they do, etc. You learn a lot about a lot of other people, but you also kind of, maybe this is like a neurodivergence thing of how this is something that a lot of people might not think about, but part of that kind of experience is also thinking or realizing a lot of how your own actions, the things that you do enjoy, might not align with a lot of the people that you care about or that say they care about you and such. And for me, that's kind of been a bit of a recent struggle, is that sort of fight of whether or not I belong in certain circles just because the things that I think, the things that I say, and the things that I enjoy sure, every now and then I might be able to sort of what make a parallel or find some kind of game that aligns with both of us. But most of the time, I kind of end up just kind of doing my own thing compared to other people who have these groups or circles who are all kind of doing a relatively same thing. Um, we're kind of reaching a little bit to the point where I'm probably going to start looping or kind of repeating myself. So, one of the things I want to try and experiment on is the human brain is wired for a bias towards negativity. So one of the things I want to try and do with these is always end on a bit of a good note or a kind of something to try and remember. And in this case, it's love, care, affection. I feel all of those things that I've talked about recently, but I also know that a lot of the people that I'm around do love me, do care about me. They want the best for me. They want to probably try and make me feel feel happy, accepted, loved, and so on. Um, and that's why I can't really fault any of them for just kind of doing what they want to do with their lives. Everyone's kind of struggling. Everyone's kind of making, their own efforts in life to just make the most of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love all of my friends, all of the people who've made some kind of impact in my life, and I will never stop doing so. And I know that they love and care about me. So try and remember that even with everything being as hard as it is, that the people, there are people out there who do love and care about you, even if it doesn't seem like it immediately, or even if you might be someone who sits alone in a group of like upwards of 10 other people or even more, depending. Understand that there is probably someone who does notice you. And if you're someone who has noticed these quiet people or these sort of people who are struggling to kind of make their foothold in a community, be the one to reach out and make them feel welcome. Try out try out a game that maybe is outside of your comfort zone if it's being played by someone that you cared about. Try to watch a show that they like that maybe you wouldn't watch on your own. Something like that can go a very long way of making someone feel welcome, loved, and accepted. This is a bit of a longer one. Huh. We'll have to see if 20 minutes will be the new maximum, so to speak. But for now, this is Chaz, Russell Scott, Phoebe, EXE Tsukino, signing off. Everyone, remember to try and strive for your own highest good, and have a good night or day.